Hello. The Divine Code reading for February 13th, pages 501 and 502, and because of the long footnote, we'll also be doing 503. We are in the chapter or subchapter, Precepts related to adultery by a Gentile with a married or betrothed Jewess. Topic number 9. A Jewess who lives as a domestic partner with a Jewish man without ever having been acquired by him through a traditionally witnessed contractual marriage agreement, as defined by Jewish law, does not have the status of a married woman in Jewish law. And a Gentile who cohabits with such a woman is not liable for the capital sin of adultery. Such actions are, of course, strictly forbidden. Sua Responsa of the Samach Tzedek Even HaEzer, chapter 138, that discusses at length if a Piligish, a concubine of a Jew, needs a get, a traditional document of Jewish divorce, if the relationship is terminated. It appears clear that according to the opinion that for a Jewish Pligis this is not required, surely she is not a fully married woman according to Torah law for Jews. And therefore a Gentile who transgressed and cohabited with her would not be liable for the capital sin of adultery. This is also clear from the responsa of Ramban, chapter 284, cited in Beit Shmuel 26:2, that a Jewish man is not liable for adultery if he had relations with another Jew's Pligish, that's concubine. It is also implied from Rima Even HaEzer, chapter 10, that this is also the opinion in Igrit Moshe Even HaEzer, volume 1, chapter 73 to 75, that a Jewess who lives specifically and permanently with a man, but without a traditionally witnessed Jewish marriage, is not considered married and does not need a get. Even though the Gentile Pligish is considered married to the Gentile man, since this is not the case of a Jewish Pligis, a Gentile man, therefore, would also not be liable for a capital sin if he had relations with the Jewish Pligish, as she is not married to her Jewish partner within Torah law. The general rationale, that is in order to have liability for the capital sin of adultery, which is only with a fully married woman, a Gentile woman has to be fully married in the context of the Noahide Code for Gentiles, and the Jewish woman has to be fully married in the context of Torah precepts for Jews. So all of the laws of adultery with a married woman is based upon the status of the woman. In the case of a Gentile woman married to a Gentile man, what is necessary is that they be living together, they have relations for the sake of marriage, for the sake of permanent living together as partners. That's how it works for the non-Jews, for Gentiles. And therefore, in that case, a concubine, if she's living there for the purpose of marriage, and they're having relations for the purpose of marriage, that is all that's required to be considered married within the Noahide, within non-Jewish law. So common law marriage would exist for Gentiles. Common law marriage does not exist for Jews, and even civil marriage would not exist for Jews. For a Jew to be married, it has to be through the Orthodox Jewish system of marriage, and it's very structured. It requires 10 witnesses. It requires acquisition. There's a lot more involved in the Jewish law for to be married. If a civil union or a common law, or if they got married at a Reformed temple or something like that, where they do not follow the Orthodox rules, then that is not considered to be married as far as the Torah law is concerned, and therefore that person would not, there would not be a liability for adultery in such a case, because it's not considered a Torah, it's not considered a Torah recognized marriage, and therefore it would not be a Torah recognized adultery in such a case. It's still forbidden because it's under the general category of licentiousness, which will be discussed further on in the Divine Code. But it would not be considered married unless it's a proper Orthodox marriage. And there's been a lot of halakhas in the last 100 years because many of the Jewish people are getting married outside of the Orthodox system, and there had to be questions as to how to figure the children out in such a case. And so, like Igros Moshe, Rabbi Feinstein developed these understandings that a civil marriage or a reform or conservative marriage is not considered a proper halachic marriage for a Jewish person. And that's where this corresponds with the possible situation, God forbid, of a non-Jew having relations with this improperly married Jewish woman. Topic number 10. There is another difference between the laws regarding adultery with a Jewess who is married to a Jew versus with a married Gentile woman. A Gentile is only liable for the capital sin of adultery with another man's Gentile wife if he, the adulterer, has normal relations with her. On the other hand, if the married woman is a Jewess, he is liable even if he cohabits with her in an abnormal way, as is the Torah's law for Jews. So within the halakhas for the non-Jew, it has to be within the normal way. That's would be through vaginal intercourse. And in the Torah law for Jews, it would also involve the abnormal, which is a euphemism for anal intercourse. So it would either be the normal or abnormal intercourse would make a person liable, and if it's a Jewess, and the halakhas always follow the status of the woman. So if it's a Jewess, then it would be either through the Jewish definition of adultery, which would be the normal or abnormal manner, would make a Gentile liable. Therefore, a Gentile who cohabits with a betrothed Jewish woman, or one who has only entered her wedding canopy, even in the abnormal way, is liable for adultery, and the penalty from a Beit Din court would be strangulation, because again the laws follow the status of the woman, and if the woman is a Jewess, therefore the laws would not be the Noahide, it would not be the non-Jewish law, it would be the Jewish law that's being followed. It would be through strangulation, as it would be for a Jewish adulterer. If she was also a virgin minor up to the age of 12 and a half, the specified penalty would be stoning. And that the stoning is not how it's shown in the movies. It would be rather being thrown off a cliff onto a rock below, and then a rock is pushed on top to make sure the person is crushed. That's the Torah understanding of stoning. If, however, a Gentile cohabits with a Jewess in either the normal or abnormal way after she had relations with a Jewish husband, he is judged and is liable for punishment according to the Noahide prohibition of adultery. So if there is a within the no, if it's a non-Jew Jewish man with a fully married Jewish woman, the non-Jewish law would apply. If it's with a betrothed woman, then the Jewish law would apply because there is no death penalty in the case of in the Gentile law, and therefore they'd be under the Jewish jurisdiction. But because there's a death penalty in the Gentile law, that would proceed, and that would be the operative if the Jewish woman is fully married, that the Gentile would be killed by the sword through decapitation. I'm not sure what happens to the woman in such a case. That would have to be discovered through the Jewish law. It is clear from Rambam, Laws of Kings 9:7, that a Gentile is liable for cohabiting with a Jewess who is the wife of a Jew, even for cohabitation in the abnormal way, as Ravaz there and Or Hachaim on Genesis 24 explain according to Rambam. The reason is because the adulteress in this case are judged by the Torah's laws for Jews regarding the transgression, which specifies that they are fully liable for adultery by either the normal or abnormal relations. Min HaChinuch, Commandment 35, sections 14 and 15 explain that the implication from Rambam that the Gentile is liable, that logically it seems not so, since such a cohabitation does not fall under the parameters of he shall cling with his wife and not another man's wife. Therefore, the Gentile cohabits with a Jewess, whether the Gentile cohabits with a Jewess or Gentile woman. Seemingly, this would be correct logic for regarding a Jewish betrothed woman. She has already received the title and status of marriage in Torah law for Jews, and she is already called the wife of another man. By comparison, a sin through cohabitation depends on the prohibitions in regard to the manners of the cohabitation, and in this regard, a Gentile is not liable for adultery by abnormal relations, since even for a Jewess this is not considered clinging. The exclamation. So the question is, the Gentile law is not to cling to another woman, to another man's wife, and clinging is defined as normal relations, not the abnormal relations. Therefore, how is it that the laws we're being given here would include abnormal relations? The exclamation based on Kesneth Mishnah, see footnote 41, that would have been a while back, is that a Gentile is liable for cohabitation in the abnormal way with all forbidden relatives, and only to the prohibition of adultery with a Gentile married woman does the Torah add the extra specification of clinging. The reason for this lighter prohibition is that the Gentile married partners can easily divorce when they wish to do so. And just as they were married through cohabitation in the normal way alone, so too a violation in this marriage only through the same way, normal relations. This is in contrast to relations with other forbidden partners who are permanent relatives, such as a man's mother or his full sister, with whom any type of cohabiting is forbidden. As explained in footnote 41, this is the distinguishing feature in the verse, Genesis 2:24, that teaches that forbidden relations for Gentiles makes one liable for a capital sin. A Gentile man must separate from his specified permanent relatives, in Hebrew, which means total separation from either type of cohabitation. And any wife with whom he clings, davak in Hebrew, which means normal relations, must only be his own wife. So in the case of other forbidden relations, abnormal as well as normal relations would be forbidden, would be death penalty. In the case of marriage, it would only be normal relations, but not the abnormal relations, which is according to this is because through having normal relations, it would almost be like having a divorce from one's spouse. The woman would be divorcing from her spouse by having relations with another man. Of course, that kind of destroys the whole concept of adultery anyway. In contrast, a Jewess, in order to be called married, must be acquired as a wife by a Jewish man, and her marriage can only be terminated with a special divorce document called a get in Hebrew. So she and her Jewish husband cannot terminate their marriage as easily as a Gentile couple can, which can be just by terminating their commitment and their clinging to one another. Thus, if a Gentile commits adultery with a married Jewess, he is liable for capital sin regardless of whether it is by the normal or abnormal relations. So, in the case of the Gentile marriage, the adultery would be if they are it would be in the case of clinging, which is normal relations. Apparently, the adultery would be if the woman is not intending to divorce her husband, but she wants to have something on the side and then stay with her husband. That's where the adultery would be. But therefore, the abnormal relations would not count in that sense. Whereas in the Jewish marital situation, the woman is acquired by the man. She becomes his wife, and through that, a violation would be either normal or abnormal relations. And if the non-Jew has abnormal relations, that would be a death penalty because it's a violation of the specifics of the Jewish marital relation. Another possible explanation is this forbidden cohabitation with a married Jewess is included in the additional teaching learned from the verse in Leviticus 18:6 that uses the term any man, as explained in topic 3:8. Since the Torah's law for Jews, one is also liable for adultery with a married Jewess by abnormal relations. A Gentile would be liable for this if he commits this act with a married Jewess. So I would suggest that these are not necessarily possible alternative explanations, but these are working together, because when it refers to any man in that case in Leviticus, it also would include non-Jews, and that would also mean that the non-Jews are included in the Torah prohibition against adultery with a Jewish woman. So both of those explanations are working together. Thank you.